excited to
And
be here with you today. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Yeah. So I'm so excited to be, that working with you on the RCIS since you're our new president. So tell me, what's your background? When did you start in RCIS? What's your relationship to it?
Yeah, so I got involved in RCIS. I'm the new chair, and I became chair at our last conference that we had in March. And usually a chair, when you step into this role, you have the year coming up to it to try to figure out what it is that you're doing. Because I think that I am probably not the only one who jumped into the leadership roles because someone asked them to do that. It was just, so Ray Farrelly was chair when she was asking me. It was either chair or past chair, and she said, "You'd be really good at this. Will you be our chair elect?" And I was like, "Oh, that sounds like I get to put off leadership for a long time. So let's do that." So that was when I got in. I was actually chair elect. And so, I got to watch somebody do what they call speed dating, which is where we try to figure out what our intersection piece is going to be, who's going to take the lead, who's going to take secondary. So basically what that means is that we pair up with one other interest section and we try to come up with a common idea and get people to talk about that, put together a panel. And as chair, my job then is to work on research and to try to put together a research panel that we, that in just pretty much anything. And so right now I'm trying to find research on a topic that is near and dear to my heart as a K-12 teacher, which is that as in going through American schools, I'm right now in Illinois, but before this I was in Vermont, and there was a big push for the last few years just trying to get us to include SEL, which is social and emotional learning into our classrooms. So we worked on things like circles and social justice. And the thing that I noticed while I was in Vermont is that there was really not very much movement in the mainstream classrooms to try to include students who were lower on the continuum of English proficiency. And so you would have these circles going on where you would say, that when I was doing circle training, they would say things like, what weather describes your emotions right now? What, or it's like, I can't even begin to think about where I would start with my students with that. And so, yeah, so that was a question that I was often asking was, okay, so I teach beginners, I teach people who are fresh off the boat, who are just coming to school in the United States for the first time. How do we include them in these conversations? Because you're giving me this list of things that we can do quick circles on, but I'm not quite sure how we can get into deeper topics, which is where we eventually want to go without excluding them in some way, especially if we're trying to figure out a problem within the classroom. And for me, because my students were sort of tracked, I had like a pull-out class for all of those kids. It does make a bigger difference when you have students who are mainstreamed, even if they're, at an advanced beginner level or a low intermediate level, that conversations that they get into could be really deep or could be very emotional or could trigger trauma. And I don't know that mainstream teachers are necessarily thinking along those lines. So that's really where I want to go. I'm still looking to see whether I can come up with research that's being done in that direction. I currently have one group that I was marginally involved in, but I went to one meeting. I tried to go to one meeting, but the door was locked, so I never actually made it in. And a colleague of mine was, she ended up taking my place on that committee, and that's fine. But it was about really just trying to go, instead of that idea of being inclusive in the schools, it was trying to go to families and doing those home visits and really trying to explore what is it that your hopes and dreams are as a student. As a parent, what are your hopes and dreams for this student, and how how does that play out in what it is that you're doing, and how can you have that sort of cultural capital really to inform your path through education. And so I know somebody who's doing that kind of research, and so I've already spoken to her about potentially speaking for us at the next TESOL. But I'm still looking for people to try to answer that for me, because the best thing that the SEL people could tell me, the people who are trying to teach us how to do circles and bring that into the classroom, they were saying, well, you could have a liaison just translating for them the whole time. And I was like, well, but then, then there's the issue of the liaison is in the community, right? So my student, if there were a deeper issue or something that they wanted to discuss that maybe their parents wouldn't be so excited about, or something that went culturally against the norms, would that really be an authentic conversation if you have someone who knows their parents who's sitting there in the circle? And so that's one issue. And then they said the second thing is that you could have a monolingual circle, which is great, but then who leads it? Because then the people who've done the training, it's like I don't speak Somali, and I don't speak Swahili, and I don't speak Lingala, and those were really languages that I needed in order to have a single language circle. And then there's that issue of exclusion, right? So how do we? I mean, circles are all about trying to build community and trying to get people to feel like they belong to that environment, and so that's really what I'm interested in right now. And so I'm searching desperately for researchers, and that's what I'm doing in RCIS right now. I'm also trying to do stuff like this to try to figure out, well, who is our membership? Because we have a lot of people who pay attention to what it is that we do, but not necessarily getting a lot of voices out there. And so I thought this would be a great way for us to get to know each other and to bring some of those other voices out.
Yeah, I think it's a wonderful idea, Beth. And, whenever you have a turnover of leadership, you have new ideas, fresh ideas. And so that's always really terrific. And I didn't realize that you'd had so much experience. I think it's really important to have that background rather than just coming in that first year, or even as the elect to come in, but being really involved with the group and embedded in what we're doing. So what are you doing now? What is your role now?
Yeah, so I've been teaching ESL, EFL, all the E's for a little more than 20 years. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in China, which is what changed me over from my first career as a journalist into a teacher. I've taught in New York City, I've taught in Florida, I was in Vermont for a very long time, and now we just moved to Illinois. And at the school that I'm at now, speakers of other languages are new to this school because it is a magnet school. And so for a long time, they just sent all of the kids who spoke another language to another school. And if parents wanted to send their kids to the magnet school, they had to refuse services. And so a few years ago, they decided, oh, that's probably illegal. And so they started allowing kids to come to this school. And so I have been added in as the second MLL teacher. That's what they call us, the multilingual learner teacher.
That seems to be the newest, yes.
Yeah, so now what I'm doing is because this is a school that's fairly new to this population, I'm trying to get them to see the benefits of doing things like vertical alignment so that everybody's using the same terminology from 6th grade to 8th grade. It's also the second time that I'm doing middle school because I'm used to either the old kids or the young kids, and the middle has never been my chosen area, but this was the job I was offered, so this is the job I have now, and it's been really super hard trying to do this virtually because there are no voices, no cameras on, and so I'm very, very excited about wrapping up this year and starting next year, where we're going to have kids who are face to face, and really trying to to work on this together. Unlike in Vermont, where I had no Spanish speakers at all, here I have Spanish, but my primary language that I have in my school is Concabal, which I knew nothing about until I started working here. Concabal is a Mayan language in Guatemala.
Oh,
And
interesting.
yeah, and so most of those students, they first, when they start school in Guatemala, they have to learn Spanish first so that they can do school. And much like my students who were in Congo had to learn French in order to do school, even though the first language might be Swahili, or they had to learn Portuguese, or they had to learn some other conqueror's language in order to be able to do school. And so these students who speak Concabal, they had to learn Spanish first. And so so that's what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to learn Spanish, because there's no Concabal on Duolingo. And so a lot of the work that I'm doing is trying to message them through various digital media, so that I can try to get them to do their math, say. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That's so exciting. And, it sounds like it's a position, hopefully, where you can carve out a lot of different types of, not necessarily programs, but programming to support all of these populations.
Yeah.
And
my is starting a garden. I just yesterday went out and dug out some garden beds, and we're going to start a garden in the yard. And I'm just, yeah, it's going to be great.
Yeah, because like you said, it's really about creating that sense of community, right? Because they lost a lot of that already. So
yeah, and also just the idea that they matter, because I think a lot of times, particularly in a school where they're new, where this population is new to the school, teachers aren't really paying much attention to them. And where we've been remote for so long, and half the kids aren't doing their work anyway, it's just like, oh, they're just in that group of people who don't want to work. And it's like, that is so much not true. Yes. And I'm trying to educate my colleagues about that, and just say, it's not that they don't want to. For the most part, it's that they just don't understand what you want, and they
or they can't express themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Or they're just, too shy, too afraid that they're going to do the wrong thing, especially at this age. It's really hard.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting, because you've got two new roles. So as president of the RCIS, and as in a new situation, in a new place, you also have to make your community too. But I'm excited for you, and I'm really excited for the year ahead. And I can definitely see why you're so passionate about refugee concerns.
Yeah, I've been working with a primarily refugee population for, ever since I started in Vermont. In Florida, I don't think I was as much aware, and definitely not in New York where I started, but in Vermont, it was all refugees all the time, pretty much. And so it's been my drive. It's been what I do. And that's actually where Ray and I met, and because she was at St. Michael's College. And so she knew me from there, and had done some work in my classroom, had placed some student teachers with me. So
yeah, Ray is awesome.
She is.
Yeah.
All right. So I think that's probably about.
Thank you so much. That was great. I really enjoyed learning more about you. I didn't really know that much about you, and now I've had the chance to. Yes, that's the reason. And this is such a great idea. Thank you so much, Beth.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your help in this.